So we are the Community Data Justice Collaborative, and we were Pittsburgh residents who were looking to shape the city and deal with the different data resources, the systems, the things that are in place, and being able to be a voice for our communities and the people that surround us. So we came together to do these things. You heard a couple of our backgrounds, but there's a bigger group than us, and we're just a cohort of Pittsburgh residents, and we're bringing different identities, different viewpoints, different experiences to the data decisions and the data entities that are making things happen in our area. And honestly, we connected with people outside of our area to do this as well, which we'll see later. We're part of the Black Equity Coalition's Data Justice Working Group, which I believe everybody is in this room. And they've been working on stuff since 2020. And we're working to get some historically excluded voices amplified and get us more, secluded from the racism, getting more equity, being more transparent, having more accountability, and being participants in these things that are happening around us, not just living in the system. Some of the goals we went through throughout our collaborative was shaping data governance. So the way our city works with the different entities to make our data policies, the system they're using, we wanted to get involved with that. And that's something that they have been educating us on, as well as hearing our voices about what's happening and what we believe should happen going forward. Uh, Co-creating standards, really giving us a voice to write on chalkboards and whiteboards. Hey, what are the standards? What are we standing on? What is importance y'all when it comes to data justice and the way that data is being used? Reviewing the data products, the systems are already firmly in place. The systems that are being used to move the data through the city, the things being collected, what's transparent and what's not. We talked a lot about that and reviewed it. Bridging the communities. So again, I'm trying not to get ahead, but we worked with people all the way from Maryland and different areas to talk about what it's like in each community to deal with the data and how it's affected, which I know the other group is working specifically here on that situation. So it's very important to know how the community attaches to the data that's being used and then preventing the harm from the data. A lot of data gets used against us. A lot of data is like, okay, all these types of people live in this area. We can target them with these ads. We can target them with these types of situations. So how do we prevent that harm? The partners we work with. So of course, the Black Equity Coalition, putting all this together, making sure that we all have this opportunity has been beautiful. The city of Pittsburgh people, thank y'all for being in the room, and then just being able to work with our government and having this opportunity to have these conversations is very important. The Western PA Regional Data Center, great people making sure the data is being utilized correctly and keeping it in order and being willing to hear us about what we can do with it, how we want to view the data. That's important. A lot of entities don't care. A lot of entities don't want to hear what we got to say about what they do. So for them to have an ear for us and actually work with us has been very important. The Beaumont Foundation, that's out of Maryland, they are working on public health and public safety through things like data resources. So for us to be able to connect with them and talk about how we want to use data in our areas and how y'all can use data in your areas is very important. And the way that they support this mission and missions around the country, and putting Pittsburgh on a pedestal to be one of the cities they work for was very important to us as we worked with them. And then neighborhood networks, such as y'all being in their room, such as us as residents being in the space, the networks we have in our different communities, even the organizations we work with. I work closely with the Kansas Center. Being able to talk to them about the things that we're talking about in these runs is very important. Why this work matters, we just heard, I caught the last 6 minutes and we heard just many important reasons why this work is important. And just talking about how data shapes health, housing, safety, resources, opportunity. The data really makes a difference. Like what data makes a difference. So we really have to take account to why we're doing what we're doing, why we all wanted to join a group like this, and why our voices are important. Community-led governance, every day I feel like I wake up like, why can't we just do that now? Why can't I vote from my phone? Why can't I do this? Why can't I have more power in my governance? So us getting more involved in the data is where that starts. When they talk about votes and stuff, that's data. That's who's voting, where are they at, who they care about, what do they care about. Um, we're trying to build trust. We're preventing bias. We're enabling thriving for ourselves. So when we have things we care about, for us to thrive, somebody else has to care about. And if we can show them the right data and prove that it's important, they might care a little more. And then strengthening our well-being, like y'all are doing in your group. I've seen some of the work and supporting. make sure that the kids who grew up in these areas, they continue to grow up and had more resources than he had. Every generation should have more than the generation before it.
Thank you, Malik. So before I go to the next slide, I have a little something to stay things up by raising hands only. Don't get nervous. But how many people here think that Pittsburgh is the most livable city? Show of hands.
Yeah.
Okay, we got two. I'm gonna leave it open for some stragglers if they'll come in. Okay, we got three. It doesn't mean it's a bad city, but it's livable. It's livable for you. Okay. How many generations of Pittsburgh? You said you only know Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm born.
Your parents were born and raised here too? Okay, same with you.
Yeah, my mom. Yeah, well, my mother was born in Alabama, but he came here, for about 5 years.
So your mama picked Pittsburgh for y'all. Yes. All right, okay. And you'll see why I asked that question. So I guess I'll start by making this a personal story with this picture right here. 2009, I moved to Pittsburgh. Wow, I'm about to date myself. But I was 23 years old. I like to say my frontal lobe hadn't fully developed, but I thought I was grown. And I was just looking to escape from my parents mostly. But I was like, oh, I'm going to come to a new city. I'm going to go to school. I was interested in medical school. Pittsburgh had reinvented itself on healthcare. These were some of the things I had heard. Of course, there was a boy involved, so I'll be honest. I did not say that in my Post Gazette article. But yeah, like it says here, after a stint in Staten Island, I had taken a trip. I quit my job in New York, went to Italy for a month, did a lot of crazy things. Like I said, my brain wasn't fully developed. And then I found myself in Pittsburgh. I'm also a first generation American, right? And I think that's important because what we learned what we know and what we've learned after being together is that we bring our stories, we bring our histories into different settings. And that colors also how we see the data. But I mentioned this article because if you just saw this article or the numerous other articles that have come out, there's some statistics mentioned in there, but anyone can write anything about any place. And you would only hope that it's based on data that is verifiable, scientific, data that speaks to me. At the time that I was interviewed for this article, I didn't meet any other Black in Pittsburgh. I hadn't met them. After a couple months being here, I had obviously, but I didn't talk to a group like this before moving to Pittsburgh. I just went on a whim and I chose well. I don't regret my decision, but I didn't have the data. And if I had it, would I trust it, right? Because we see these articles. This is 2009. This is 2025. Pittsburgh is still rated as one of the top travel destinations, is this moniker of being the most livable city. Okay, so I'll take a pause there to say that it's things like this that we want to be able to scrutinize. The doctor professor said, think critically about, right? So what did we do? That's kind of what we did. We met for 11 meetings, as I stated in the beginning, in person and virtual. We had open discussions. Some of them were breakout groups where we broke out into groups of 3, 4, 5 to talk about these things, talk about where we were from, what are we bringing to the conversation. And then there were blog posts and reflections as well. I had hoped to print some of those blog posts out for y'all, so I'm sorry that you don't have a copy, but we can share those electronically as well. The other thing that was mentioned by my colleague was this co-creation, the idea of creating the rules around how data is looked at. So one of the expectations I should say, is that the information and the discussions that we have impact what the city of Pittsburgh does with the data that they publish, right? Have any of you seen City of Pittsburgh data or know where to access it? Hands by raising your hand. You know where to go when you need data on the city? Data on 18 to 25-year-old women in Pittsburgh. Where would you go for that data? Anyone follow it out? Right. So online, but where online? Like, how would you even start?
Statistic in Pennsylvania.
Okay, you would Google stats in Pennsylvania, things like that. Y- Please continue. I didn't want to cut you off. You were BBC, like my uncle says, born before computer. Yeah, he sees that.
I needed it, I could easily my lead to go online and get exactly what you're talking about. I don't think there's anything you can't go online for me.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, you could use young people in your lives, you could use Google, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is these are the kind of discussions we were having in terms of, well, where is the data? Who's putting the data together? Who did they survey to get the data? How can we make this more accessible, right? When we talk about equity, you using your NEET means that it's not exactly equitable if you need someone younger than you to access that information for you, right? If they published it in a magazine or a booklet that went out in the mail, now we're creating access, right? Now we're thinking equitably. But that's just to give you an example of some of the conversations that we had. But then we investigated some data, right? Like there is data. There's a lot of data out there. As my colleague mentioned, data can be used for good and for bad. So knowing where the data is only the first step, but investigating the data. What exists? What's missing? Why is it missing? Right? For instance, if I had sought missing data before I made my 23-year-old jump and move to Pittsburgh, I later found out I moved in 2009. So in 2011, I started the School of Public Health. And I found out that this is one of the most dangerous cities for a Black woman to have a baby in. And it doesn't matter what school, how much school you have, how much education you have, how much money you make, you're still going to have a hard time here. It's almost as if people compared it. I had professors that compared it to living in a foreign country. The infant mortality rate, not just of the mother's mortality, right? She's at risk, but by being in Pittsburgh, her child's life is at risk.
That's great.
Okay, so I want y'all to sit. I didn't know that was missing data because again, my brain was focused on the boy, right? How do we destigmatize data, right? If you have data about a certain neighborhood, we looked at, and I'll show you in some slides later, but we looked at, especially in the School of Public Health, and I think one of our maps included this, a food desert map. If I had looked at the food desert map before I made my decision to move to Pittsburgh, I remember my first winter here, I decided to live in Regent Square. All I knew was that I was in the city, but I didn't know I was at the edge of the city. And then it was a snowstorm. I had to go to Giant Eagle. I walked miles to Giant Eagle. I'm a New Yorker. I'm used to walking with groceries, shopping cart. There was no sidewalk. There was nobody with a shopping cart. By the time I got home, all of my cans had spilled out, and I had to walk back in the snow, pick up all my cans, call my mom. I was like, I'm moving back. I can't do this. All right. So what I'm saying is the food desert map of Pittsburgh at the time I was in grad school, and still to this day, the Hill District is a food desert. I didn't know what that meant. I'm used to going to the corner store. Granted, it's not healthy food. The 1619 project talks about the sugar that is passed into the corner store that are accessible to us. I digress. How can we destigmatize the data though, right? So you see that map and you just think, oh my God, the Black people in Pittsburgh must be suffering. Like they don't got food. That's like what's going on. There needs to be more context around the data sometimes that are presented. You need to understand why it looks that way, right? And there's usually a history that tells the story as well.
Yes, I did. Right up to
It was a business district, I heard.
Danny.
Isn't that crazy?
We'll walk to the store. We'll see over a period of time they pay in the Black community.
Yeah. Yeah. And to this day, I would argue, again, I discovered that close to 10, 12 years ago. And we had Celine's in the Hill for like a blink, and then we didn't have it anymore. So, who in the city works with the data? What do you expect the people working with the data to do? If you see a map like that, what are your expectations, right? You might think, well, the next time developers start talking about where to put a supermarket, might want to focus in on some of these food deserts, right? And then the last thing is what I kind of started with. How would you request data about the city of Pittsburgh if you needed it? So my question to you is, knowing the little bit of data that you have of Pittsburgh, do you trust the data? Why not?
Because of by experience growing up there in the city. Grew up and raised two beautiful children and they were mom. But I was able to work
God bless you. It's not easy.
back. And so I only think for a family oriented single, no. Say well,
It's not designed for.
not gonna work with just
But let me ask you.
people, leave or they can marry.
Let me ask you something. Do you have any data on single people in Pittsburgh? Single black mothers in Pittsburgh, single white mothers in Pittsburgh. How many single mothers, how many single dads are there? Do we know any of that?
Yeah.
And respect to your situation. Yeah, right? Respect. It's not easy to do that, right? But what data, if you had access to certain data, what data would you have used to help make your life easier as a single mom here?
I want to use her.
Because you
I
don't.
know that there was data for blacks, female single with
Please. We wanted this to be interactive. Yes, please.
the other things were coming up. They had massive great rap. They had very a lot of friends, and they would among their set off. It's not they about 20 to 25 friends, and they were all in the same boat. And so they were able to call each other up and have one friend. Hey, guess what I just found out? I just found out that we can get a ham on Thursday. While I thought about word of our call and just cultivate them. This is better what we're doing right here. Because we're able to all sit down and then figure out, and then you guys tell us where we go to get the diet. Like you said, man, that to do you both. You see, like she said that she go to
The internet. Schmees.
So I'm asking you this question: where would people go? Like you're asking the question, and I'm asking you, where do you go to fall again? Only and it's send like this, or where?
Thank you so much for asking that question. In the interest of time, I'm going to cast the mic, but that's a very good question. And we have people in this room that work at data centers. I'm going to quickly show you this slide right here. We have someone here from City of Pittsburgh data team. Was that you, Chris? If you could raise your hand. Western PA Regional Data Center right here, right? These are the people I know. Black Equity Coalition. Okay. There's at least 6 people in this room right now who are powerhouses or are connected to powerhouses of data.
But do we have these? We had
That's so I love that you asked me that question. You challenged us with that because that's why we're doing this. I don't. I may have some like no, let me take that back. I got some emails, I got some numbers, right? Right. But like that. Like that. And that's how it really that's how it should be, honestly.
Another big point is to talk about, have these conversations so that they hear you. And they're like, all right, how do we get a social media page? I think of it like all the kids know where the parties are. They know where all the parties are. I'm posting a flyer that say, okay, this many houses have been built here. Here's a list. Like on Facebook, every time there's a list of food banks, whatever it is, I'm reposting and sharing it. So like, how do we make sure the data is just as accessible? And I think that's what you're asking.
Start telling them, hey, we need.
Thank you so much. I really do want to give my colleague a chance to speak as well. So, Fasa.
The cost of doing nothing, communities lose control over the decisions that are affecting the daily lives. I'm just going to read it. Data and technology will continue to shape housing, health, transportation, education, and public services without meaningful community input, leading to systems that work for efficiency and not people. When the doctor was talking about the metrics that we use for success and what are those best practices and standards, everything's based off economics, which is treating people like they're consumers. So all technology sees you as a target market when the truth is that you're a community and you're making decisions based off information that you hope is going to get you to where it is that you're trying to go. But that's not always the case, especially with how much information is being created every day in your attention economy. Problems appear in the real world and takes years to fix. Yeah, like a lot of the stuff that we're working on isn't stuff that you can just turn around right away. The fact that we're here, literally say the best time, if you want shade, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So the fact that we're here and we're in this room and we're thinking about infrastructure at that level, we can address this one. I'll read it real quick. When communities are excluded, problems surface in real life, not on paper. Fixing these failures later takes years of reviews, lawsuits, policy reversals. There's a lot of stuff that's moving around here. It's not just setting up a web page. There's actual policy at an institutional level that needs to shift and change, and those people need to be invited to the conversation. And we have to know who those people are. Far longer than it would take to build trust and safeguard from the start. Like my man said, he's trusting anything. So the last thing here, funders miss the chance to prevent problems instead of paying to repair them. At the end of the day, it's not just social innovation that we need to have. It's socioeconomic. This stuff got to pay for itself. We can wish for it all we want, but that's not going to move the needle in a mayor's office in any city. I don't care if it's Pittsburgh or any place. Whatever it is that we do, it has to be something that's going to be moving things forward. So you have, without early community-centered investment, funding shifts from prevention to damage control, which is always more costly because then we got to dig up what was broken in the first place and we don't know what it was. Reducing long-term impact and increasing risks to both the community and the institution. So the city hurts itself by not talking to the residents that are going to infuse it with the contextually rich data that's culturally competent enough for them to make decisions that isn't going to gentrify everybody. So every dollar spent on early community-centered collaboration reduces multiple dollars spent later on damage control systems, the damage control system fixes and trust repair. So yeah.